Hey everyone, this is Melissa, and I'm the talkative introvert. In today's episode, I am joined by Stephanie Lueras. She is a body positive ACE certified personal trainer, an ACE fitness nutrition specialist, international best-selling author, and speaker. So thanks so much for joining me today on this episode.
It's great to be here today.
Hey. And so before we get into the actual episode, I have been asking all my guests the same question. Since I am, the Talkative Introvert podcast, I wanted to know, are you an introvert, extrovert, or ambivert? Somewhere in the middle.
I am an extroverted introvert.
Okay.
I get mistaken as an extrovert sometimes, but I truly am an introvert at heart.
I get that. Yeah. I think I was talking to somebody else in a different episode how my coworkers kind of think I'm extroverted because I like to talk a lot, but I really do get my energy from like being alone and having alone time and, having it being quiet and like enjoying really small, intimate groups of people instead of like giant parties. So
yeah, I'm one of those people that I'm very shy, I'm very introverted, but once I get into a topic or a situation where I'm really comfortable, I'm really familiar with my surroundings, then like I just go off.
Well, thank you for answering that. I'm always curious about, what people actually are, because it can be different, like I said, like people at work think I'm a little more extrovert than I actually am. So yeah, I totally get the whole extroverted introvert thing. So for our actual episodes, I know we talked previously before we recorded, and I really liked your story, like around health. And I know that one of your stories is that you lost 200 pounds, which I think is so amazing. I've always struggled with my weight. I still do now. And it's just always been a battle. So I wanted to know, like, your profile talks about, profile. So for people who don't know, like, we met on Podmatch, which I kind of explained to people as like kind of Tinder for podcasters.
I love
it. So I was trying to figure out how to explain what Podmatch is, but that's pretty much what it is. It's like a dating app, but for podcasters.
I like it. Tinder for podcasts.
Thank you. So Stephanie and I met on Podmatch, and on your profile you talk about losing weight and being body positive and kind of showing that way. And so what got you into doing all this stuff? Because I know previously you said you were a pastor, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't set out to actually lose weight. I'm a person that has been overweight my entire life. I was actually put on my first diet at 5 years old. Like, you name the diet, I've been on it. I've gained and lost hundreds and hundreds of pounds in my life. And I came to this point where I was just unhappy. And I knew in my heart of hearts that another diet wasn't the answer. Like, a diet wasn't going to solve the problems of the world, but something in life had to change. And I just kind of looked around and I'm like, all right, what's going to be this catalyst to changing existence for me? And so, all right, let's just start small. And I started with the habit of drinking water. And it wasn't like, let's go out and do these crazy water challenges where people like drink a gallon of water a day. It was a 6-ounce cup of water and a timer. And every time the timer went off, it was, let's refill the cup of water over and over through the day. Then, okay, what master drinking water? What can I do next? Let's cook at home. Instead of going to the drive-through twice a day, cook at home. Let's play around with the recipes, swap things out. What kind of foods help us to feel good, and really just started being conscious of what we were eating. And just by hydrating well and eating differently, was feeling better and naturally had already started to lose a little bit of weight. And from feeling better, I was like, all right, well, let's see what kind of physical activity, I can do. Now, at this point, being in a much larger body, I was pretty close to losing my mobility. Uh, in my mind, the only thing that I could do was walk. So, go out, walk to the end of the street and back, thought I was going to die. But it was okay, walk to the end of the street and back, around the block, around the neighborhood, further and further. And then that walking became, I wonder if I can run. Now, I'm the girl that fakes sick in gym class. So, like, running is a foreign concept to me. So, I'm out on a walk one day, stop sign, like maybe 50 yards down the road, not that far. I run to this stop sign. And again, it's that I want to die feeling. And something in me, though, changed. And I'm like, I got to go figure out this fat girl running thing because there's something to it. So I go home and again, like whole like this breakdown thing of like building up the habits from tiny. And so just like, from the end of the street and back, it became 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, marathons. Now I'm the crazy person that jumps over into triathlons, building up the distances there. So going from drinking a 6-ounce cup of water to now training for Ironman distance triathlons, I never spent a day intentionally dieting, but my body's let go of over 200 pounds. And I've also, at the same time, looked at a lot of other things in life. I've focused on really that holistic health. What are the emotional things in life that need a little bit of work? I have PTSD. So, how am I coping with life? Am I actually doing the things that best serve me? Am I employing the coping mechanisms that I have at my disposal? Am I growing spiritually? I formerly was a pastor, and it's pretty humbling to say I wasn't growing spiritually. I was doing the bare minimum to show up on Sunday, to serve the congregation, to preach, to teach. And I wasn't growing my own personal faith and had to become responsible for that. And so by doing all of those things, really transformed who I was, took that ownership, brought in the people and the structures that I needed to feel accountable for my own success.
So really the journey you went to be a healthier you, is that what that pushed you to become like these, an ACE certified personal trainer and a nutrition specialist and all that?
Absolutely. Going through I'm like the world's biggest super nerd. And so, bringing in the support that I needed in, going through and, racing and learning all these things about my body, I wanted to understand what my triathlon coach was teaching me about my body, what my sports dietitian was telling me about food and my relationship with food. And so I went and got these certifications to really understand what was being taught to me, not realizing at the time that several years later, I'm going to step out of the current life I'm in and open my own business, walking alongside people in their own transformation journeys. It so happened that way, but life happens.
Yeah, and that's amazing that you're doing that and you're sharing that with people. And I was actually going to ask you too, like during your, I don't know what you call it, your journey, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, did you, I guess you did have coaches, right? You said you had a marathon coach.
Mhm.
Did you have a personal trainer as well, and you did mention you had a nutritionist?
Yeah, so I've brought in all sorts of accountability and different people at different points. I have had therapists at different points. I've used personal trainers at different points. I have a triathlon coach. I've used registered dietitians. I've used sports dietitians. My own doctor has been wonderful. Just I've had pastors, I've had, just all of those different people that hold me accountable in different ways for what I'm working towards, because there's not one person that can do it all.
Right. And so for your company, um, uh, I just had the name Heart and Soul Fitness and Wellness.
Mhm.
What is your what is your main service? Is it mostly personal training? Is it mostly nutrition? Is it mostly coaching for like certain events? Like what is your main?
So I work with nutrition and with fitness. I either exclusive or the marrying of the two. And really my mission with working with individuals or in a group setting is answering that question, how do you want to feel? And the the typical people I work with are those that are just getting into exercise, or for whatever reason are coming around a certain barrier, whether it's age, ability, size, chronic illness or condition. There's or that bridge between like physical therapy and independent exercise. There's something that they're just not walking into the traditional commercial gym and hopping on a machine. That's not their jam. And because there's something for everyone when it comes to movement, but sometimes we need that little extra support along the way to discover what's good, what's fun, what our fit is when it comes to movement. And then that nutrition, that food piece, that's just the added bonus, because food is part of life and food helps us to feel good.
Thank you for explaining that. Since you Now that you are an owner of your own company in fitness and you also have experience working with other people while you were, yourself was getting more healthy and fit, what makes your company different from those other ones?
So I own a residential business. We got our home with the intent that I would be running a residential licensed business. I have a private office and a private gym in my home. I see people in person and virtually. And that was very intentional because not everybody is comfortable in a commercial space. And because the traditional gym can be intimidating for a lot of people. They don't like the crowds. They don't like the large machinery. They don't like the mirrors, the loud music, whatever it might be. There's something about it that makes it uncomfortable for them. I've been very intentional in creating an atmosphere that is comfortable and calming for movement, and that really facilitates something that feels like home, whether you're on the screen or in person, so that you feel like you can have open dialogue. Because if you can't communicate with someone about how you feel about movement, then it's not something that you can build consistency with, that you can really foster enjoyment and lifelong movement, lifelong journey with.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because I used to be part of a gym. They have like those Planet Fitness and Crunch and like those small gyms that's supposed to be like very inclusive and, all bodies, all sizes, all that fun stuff. And it's great. And I'm glad that they're doing that and they're promoting that. But it still doesn't take away the fact that there are a bunch of mirrors everywhere. There's people everywhere. And for me, like I used to work out with like my cousin, but our work schedules just changed, so we just can't do that anymore. And when when it ended up being just me, like I kind of relied on her a lot to know what I'm supposed to be doing because I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's also just I don't like eyes on me, even though I'm sure everyone's just in their own head doing their own thing. It just feels like it because I feel like I'm probably not doing something right, but someone's not going to say it because they're like too nervous or like, don't want to, point it out or be a jerk or whatever. And so I really like the idea that you have like a private gym where people can go to and feel comfortable. And so I'm sure you can't just have like people having individual times, right? Like if they're going to your gym, are you just teaching them different movements and how to do certain things and then they take that home, or how does that work?
So everything's based on private sessions. So everyone has their time slot. We're working together during that time. And so they're either coming to me, it's virtual, and I work mobile too. Sometimes I go to them. Like, this afternoon I'm going to someone's office because that's what works for them and their lifestyle. They can't get away, and they movement is something that's important to them. So that's the environment that we work with.
Oh, that's amazing. I've looked up personal trainers in the past, but it's like usually a group setting or we meet up at a park or something. And I'm like, that's too public. Like, I don't want to be at the park and, trying to do whatever they're asking me to do in front of a bunch of strangers. So I think that's really awesome. That's really cool that you're doing that. Do you have other trainers or is it just you for now?
So right now it's just me. Someday we might grow a little bit.
Yeah. Where are you guys located?
So I'm in Lake Havasu City, Arizona.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we are in the same, I think we talked about that. We're in the same time zone, I think, right now. Because I know sometimes we're not and sometimes we are.
Yeah, yeah. The rest of the world has to get on with getting rid of this daylight savings time.
We voted for it. California did, but I think if I read it correctly, it has to go through the Supreme Court in order to take it out for some reason, even though we all voted that we didn't want it. So I'm
Okay.
like confused why it has to go through the Supreme Court. And that was a while ago. I think we voted that on that. Like, I think I was still in college or like that was like 8 years ago or something. I don't remember. But it was a while ago, but we still have daylight savings. And anyways, that's a different subject. So when we did last talk, that's what I was trying to remember. You did want to talk about bodily autonomy when it comes to health, and I know you're a big advocate for that. And I know we're not talking about like political stuff.
Right,
We're
right.
right. So in your terms, like what does bodily autonomy mean to you?
So when we talk about body autonomy, it is really taking ownership of who we are in being our own body expert, especially when it comes to healthcare. There are a lot of amazing medical professionals out there. I don't ever want to come across like I am putting down the amazing medical professionals out there. But there's a lot of lazy medicine that comes across. And, now this is kind of a bad example, but like, you go into a doctor's office and you come in with a cold. Okay, lose weight. You know, a lot of people hear it. Like, you go into the doctor's office with a complaint and the prescription is lose weight. That is not exactly how it works. Losing weight does not change health outcomes. Habits change health outcomes. There are many, many health outcomes that can be changed, like blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. All of these things can be changed through habits without touching the scale. And so it's really important that we know our bodies, that we advocate for ourselves and have these really important conversations when we're in the doctor's office. Asking simple questions like, if somebody said, if you have a provider say something like, oh, well, this would be solved if you would lose weight, firing back with the question, well, if you had somebody that came in a smaller body, what would your recommendation be? You'd probably get a different answer. And so just starting to open that dialogue and having some different conversations is so important, because there's a lot of different things that come about when we help our providers think a little bit further outside the box.
On top of that, I feel like this kind of conversation and these different topics should also be brought up, in school or like in education too, because um, what you were saying just reminded me of my husband. He was just telling me a story about his conversation with his customer, and his customer is about, I think he's like in his 70s or late 70s, and he has like multiple health issues, and they're moving from their house to a different house so that they can be closer to the hospital because they are, older and have multiple appointments. And so he was telling my husband to like, be careful with his diet and don't eat so much, like red meat and like fatty foods and stuff. And he said, they don't tell you that before you get sick, but they tell you that after you get sick and it's too late. And I was
Right.
like, yeah. So that kind of reminded me of what you were talking about just earlier.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that, just in the habits that we engage in every day, we can change health outcomes. And there's so many people I talk to that come in with such fear because they've been told something or they've been given a diagnosis, and they they think that they have to go to such extremes to now reverse something, to change something, and there's such a fear that comes with it. And it doesn't have to be that way. We have to we respect the medical profession. We respect our doctors. They put in years and years of work. They are they are wonderful people, but we have to get to this place where we partner with them instead of feeling like they're talking down to us.
Mm.
And because who knows us better than us? We live with ourselves 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point you made about, being a partner and not them talking down to us, because it's it just reminds me of people in my mom, for example. She was saying like she isn't eating sugar, or like, so she's diabetic,
Uh-huh.
and she's very good about, watching what she eats and making sure her blood sugar levels are, in the right level. And but I just think it's funny because when she knows she's up for a doctor's appointment, she's extra good. She's extra good about her diet and her exercise and all this stuff. And I just think it's funny because I'm like, you should do that all the time, not before you see your doctor. But there's like this weird relationship people have with their doctor where they don't want to like disappoint them. It's like telling mom and dad you stole a cookie from the cookie jar or something
Yeah.
like that.
And that's so funny. I write a health column in our local newspaper, and I just wrote about that a few weeks ago. You don't disappoint your doctor. Your doctor is never going to be angry or disappointed with you, or that's something I hear so often is, and like even people will cancel appointments or never go back for a follow-up because they didn't do what the doctor told them to do, instead of returning and having a different conversation, maybe asking for some different recommendations, like, okay, say somebody has high blood pressure and the recommendation was to log your uh, blood pressure at certain times a day and do these stress management activities. Well, it didn't work for this person. So the conversation could be, well, is there different times a day that I can take my blood pressure? Are there different activities I can do instead of avoiding it? And having a different conversation instead of fearing what the doctor's response can be. There's always another workaround.
Yeah. It's so weird that people think that way. And yeah, I think it really should be more of a partnership and working together. And it's just funny how people, I don't know where that came from, like why is that? And then why do so many people feel that way? And I don't know.
Yeah.
And so for your clients, like do you talk to them about their medical issues if they have any, and how, like, do you assist them with how they talk to their doctors, or?
Well, I do have a limited scope of practice within what I do. I do take a medical history because there are some contraindications when it comes to exercise and what people have in their medical history. In terms of the coaching that I do, there are some lines that do get crossed, and so I can make recommendations for people that, this is some things to ask your doctor. What works for you, and so they, and give them some guidance to ask their doctor. In some situations, I even have some waivers, and they can sign the releases with their doctors, where I have conversations directly with the physicians, especially if somebody has like an orthopedic issue where they're working with maybe an orthopedic surgeon or a physical therapist, where it's an actual physical issue. Though that's something that I can talk talk directly with that provider so that I'm making sure that we're doing something safe for that person. There's a lot of different levels of care that can be facilitated so that that person really is getting the best care possible.
That's awesome that you do that. Like I know some people it's hard for them to be an advocate for themselves. And so, having that extra person to, talk for them sometimes it's helpful.
Yeah.
So to your training and your certification, so I know your profile says ACE certified. So what is ACE?
So ACE is the American Council on Exercise, and there are a number of different certifying bodies when it comes to personal trainers, health coaches, nutrition certifications. I went there. There's a lot of different reasons people choose different certifying bodies. I personally chose the American Council on Exercise, one because it there it's easily a little bit more accessible with some insurance companies. I don't directly bill insurance, but it's a little bit easier for clients to get insurance reimbursement if they're working through their insurance. Also, it's I found it to be the most size inclusive programs that I looked at. And that's something that personally is very important to me because even though I've lost a very large amount of weight, I'm never going to be the smallest person in the world. And people come in all shapes, sizes, and, you know, and I think it's important that we realize no matter what somebody looks like, how they present, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, that we make that accessible. And especially, like for me, a person in a large body showing up to a triathlon, I don't look like everyone else. And I think that needs to be more mainstream, that we see people of all shapes and sizes showing up everywhere and that it's accepted. That's my shtick.
So when you said that, ACE is or is more size inclusive than the other certificates, like what are they doing differently? Like why aren't the other ones as size inclusive?
So it's more in the languaging of the certification programs, in that the language doesn't push uh, necessarily that weight loss is the only way to go when it comes to fitness. That everybody pursues exercise for different reasons, and there shouldn't be a general assumption that when somebody walks in a larger body that their goal is weight loss. And actually, the American Council on Exercise has just come out with a size inclusive specialist program, which is the first of its kind. And I'm so excited about that because it takes that diet culture language that is so prevalent in the fitness and wellness industry out of the equation and just makes movement movement.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah, that I'm sure that's gonna be a really great program if you're gonna
Yeah,
do it.
I'm so excited to take a closer look at it. I literally just saw the email earlier today about it.
Okay. Yeah, I would have never thought I don't know, because when I think of being certified as a personal trainer, my thought is that it's based on, how to move properly and how to move for the right person and how to, be fit, but not have the focus solely be on weight loss. Like I thought
Mm-hmm.
the whole certification is all about, being fit, but not being skinny necessarily, but being healthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that, like different certifications have, I don't know, different ways they go about being inclusive or like
Right.
size inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So for your clients, have you seen a trend on their biggest reasoning for seeking you out and seeking this kind of help?
Some of the biggest trends I see is people that want freedom and movement. Generally, the clients that I have are over 30, generally a little bit older than that, but we'll say 30 and above. And but across any age, people are looking for flexibility, stability, and balance. Whether that's keeping up with their children, their grandchildren, being able to move around comfortably doing their daily tasks so that they're not creaking and groaning and cracking and all the other stuff. And a big fear from so many people is if I fall down, I want to be able to get up. And that's for people of any age that, if I fall down, I want to be able to get up off the floor. And, that's something that we take for granted. And, that's something that's truly we're able to really prepare people for in a lot of ways through functional movement, through building muscle, through those everyday push, pull, bend, twist, squat movements that we do every single day, that you can feel comfortable in whatever situation you get into to take care of yourself. So you feel free.
Yeah, that's a really great, reason to start, moving around and exercising. Cause that's kind of my reasoning too, is um, I'm not at the biggest I've ever been. I've lost some weight, but I'm still bigger than I used to be. And it's definitely has its issues. And I didn't even realize it until later on, just comparing myself, now versus, college, for example. I used to go hiking a lot and I love hiking. I love being out in nature. But I realized like because of, life and school and work, and like I wasn't able to exercise for a long period of time. And I remember the last time I went hiking, it was just awful. Like I was hot, I was sweaty, I was losing breath. I couldn't keep up with my friends. And I was like, why did this happen? They're like, when did this happen? And that's really, me being immobile or not being able to do the things I used to be able to do really got me to thinking like, okay, I really need to start working out again and start moving around and eating healthier and all that. And so for you though, I know you mentioned that you inadvertently started losing weight and you said you were unhappy, but was there like a specific moment or that really, clicked turned on the light bulb in your head or anything that you remember?
You know, it wasn't one specific thing. It was just I I was tired of just just being tired and just doing the same thing every day, just kind of dragging myself around, always being tired. And the thing was, it took a long time for me to have it click that it doesn't have to be hard. Like, not just movement, not just exercise, but life doesn't have to be hard. Like, but to equate it to exercise, like, you don't have to go out and do a crazy 60-minute workout to have it count. Like, you can do a 5-minute workout in little chunks through the day, and that counts. That cumulative effect really does make a difference. If you only have 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, or if that's all you can do, 5 minutes, 6 days a week still adds up to 30 minutes. And that took a while for me to really add up in my mind, that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing, that little things really do add up. Little things snowball. And when I look back and saw, oh, whoa, all this stuff really does add up and change, because you don't see it in the moment. But that was really the light bulb thing for me.
Okay. And for people, your clients and you included, I know there's a lot of people out there who they do really well. They start on it, they start slow, they start incorporating walking and drinking water, but then after a while they'll stop and they will regress, and then they'll start all over again and they'll go well again. So what do you tell your clients and people in general, who have a hard time just sticking with these new habits and sticking with, a routine or anything like that? Because I think that's my biggest issue, is that, I'll do well, but then I'll go back, and then I'll do well, and then I'll go back. And so I'm always stuck in this limbo.
So there's two big parts to that. The first is it's that thing of starting small. We Whenever we start something new, it's that shiny object syndrome, the New Year's resolution thing, where we bring in something new, something big, that everything starts at once. And it might work for a few months, a few weeks, maybe less, but it's something so big that we've superimposed on our life, and it starts to crumble because it didn't fit with our schedule, with our family, with our job, with our values, with our pocketbook. And so it starts to fall away. But when we start with something so small, like one habit, like adding a 5 minute, a 10 minute, a 15-minute workout, and then adding, maybe I'm cooking at home twice a week, or whatever it is, adding one or two things in very small increments and building up from there, it easily adds into our calendar. It easily adds into our pocketbook. We're not disrupting our family. We're not disrupting our calendar. It's something that's honoring to our values. And so it makes it a little bit harder to fall away, because it's not something that has completely interrupted life. The other thing is that accountability and support. Somebody has to know what you're doing. And accountability isn't going to be that person that's going to come around and be that pain in the rear. They might be. Every once in a while, we do need that kick in the rear. But they are going to be that person that's going to check in, that's going to be your cheerleader, that's going to say, hey, what do you need? and they're going to be that sounding board for you. Can I provide you a support? What, do you need the rah or do you need me to push you out the door? And it's a conversation between the two of you to to know what you need. And so it's that, some people go as far as having a written agreement, but it's that verbal agreement of, this is what I need in this area to hold me accountable, so that I know this is the commitment that I've made. This is what I need going forward.
So that part can be difficult for some people.
It is. It's hard to ask for help. It's so hard.
Do you have advice for people who may not have that kind of support system? Like okay, so I'll give myself as an example. Luckily I have my husband who's there for me. But, if I didn't have him, let's say, like my family's our culture is weird because they are there's like reels and TikToks all about like Filipino aunts and moms and how like they always like talk about your body weight, but then they get mad at you if you don't eat at a family event. And it's just very like confusing because it's like, okay, you want me to be skinny, you want me to be fat. Like, I don't understand what you want. And so, like I've had in the past mentioned I was on a diet before, and they would like laugh. I'm like, you don't need to be in a diet. Why do you need diets? Like, no one needs diets. But then they'll turn around and be like, oh, you gained weight this time, or like, it looks like you gained weight. And it's like, it's so confusing, And so for people who are like in that kind of environment where they don't really necessarily have someone they can trust, like, is there, groups they can go out to? Like, do you know of any?
Absolutely. There are always, that's the beauty of the internet. There is, go on Eventbrite, go on meetup.com, go on Facebook, go on Twitter. That the support of internet strangers can sometimes be better than your friends and family. And quite honestly, I always tell people family is not always the best accountability, because we love our family, but family can be a little bit flaky when it comes to accountability, because they'll either be a little bit too strong at not the right time, and they'll be a little bit too soft at not the right time. But, sometimes internet strangers can be some of the most loving people in the world and be exactly who you need. And sometimes they're easier to ask for help than the people that know us best.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, family members and friends, they have the best intention and they don't want to like offend you or say anything. Cause I know, like, for my friends, for example, I deal with body dysmorphia. Like, I definitely have a struggle with my self-image, and it's been like that forever. And my friends are they're just such amazing people. And they're like, they'll easily say like, you're beautiful the way you are. You look great the way you are. And they're like, hype men. And that's great. And I love that they do that. But also at the same time, like,
right.
like I need, that accountability. And so, yeah, sometimes they're not the best people to choose.
Exactly.
And so another thing that I know that I struggle with in the past, and I'm getting better at it now because I know there's not necessarily an end goal. It's more of like a lifestyle change. And so I'm trying to really change my mindset on that, because I really was stuck on, okay, I need to be, this many pounds. And then my life will be great after that, but I do understand like it's not a race. It's like what do they say? It's not a race, it's a journey or something like that. And so what do you tell people who get discouraged easily? Like if they didn't lose the 10 pounds at the end of the month, or if they, didn't get to walk a mile, by the time the goal that they made, like how do you talk to those people?
So I always come back to my question, how do you want to feel? Because the number on the scale or the clothing size proves nothing. And I use myself as an example. I'm at a size right now. I'm smaller at 41 than I was in middle school, and I'm still not a very small person. Now, if I was to ever imagine what my body would look like at that number on the scale, I would not picture the body that I have, because I have sagging skin from the years and years of yo-yo dieting. I've got sagging skin on my arms. I've got sagging skin on my thighs, and it's just not pretty. I got no boobs, and my body doesn't look the way I would have assumed my body would look. But I have to think about the whole person. I am stronger than I could have possibly ever imagined. My body does incredible things. Could I have ever imagined swimming for miles, riding my bike for hundreds of miles, running marathons? Like, these things are inconceivable that my body does. So I always have to come back to, do I feel good? Is my body able to do what I want it to do? How do I feel? Is there something in this arena that I can accomplish? Because the number on the scale, my clothing size, that's not always going to be congruent. And body composition and weight loss, they don't always change at equal rates either. I had a period in marathon training where I didn't lose an ounce, but I lost 5 clothing sizes. So it's really a mind game too, of taking the numbers out of it and really looking at, how do I feel and what can my body do?
So do you encourage people to, how do I phrase this? Like, because I know people like to keep track of their progress. That's why people, weigh themselves. They, they check their measurements and all that stuff. And so what do you encourage your clients to do to?
So we do a lot of different benchmarks. If somebody absolutely has to be tied to that scale, okay, we'll use the scale as one benchmark. But we'll also take some measurements. But we only use the scale once a month. We revisit those measurements every 8 weeks. And then we still look at some other things. We'll measure things like range of motion on certain exercises. Did your flexibility improve in a certain area? Can you bend over further? Can you reach the floor now when you touch your toes? Different things that you can have tangible progress depending on whatever those specific goals are, because everyone is very different. Everyone has very individual goals, and it could even be, on average, did you cook 3 times a week? Whatever that looks like, that measures success for that person.
Yeah, because I know some people, they need that. And I feel like I need that too. Like, am I doing any better? Am I getting stronger? And I don't necessarily always know how to measure that kind of progress, but because it sure you can like ask yourself like if you feel stronger, but it's also a mental game, you
Mhm.
know, like maybe I do feel stronger today, but then I don't tomorrow. And so like how do you, you know, collect that progress and try to figure out, you know, are you better than you were before?
Yeah, and the hard thing is there is no instant results. And like I said, that's the important thing. Like if somebody's attached to the scale weighing once a month, like especially as women, you can fluctuate 10 pounds in a day, just that hormonal cycle, water weight. So like our bodies lie to us. That's just straight up like wrong. So it's one of those things, like you can just be having an off day and just like it's like I can't even deal with this. And so it's looking at the evidence over time instead of that snapshot in time. So looking at a lot of different data points to be able to say, hey, okay, I've had some success.
I think that's kind of the problem sometimes with different apps like Fitbit, for example, and I don't know if you use it. I kind of stopped using it because it's just a like a constant reminder, like, you know, I didn't make it to this weight, to that weight, because they do have, I don't know if you've ever used it, but you can like input your weight, for example, and it like makes you a really pretty like, you know, chart, you know, like a little line graph, and it looks great. But then when you actually look at the data, it's like, wow, I really sucked this month, or wow, I really did well this month. And it's just not, I don't know, I don't think it's a very good, like I can see someone being very obsessed with it and, you know, really messing with your mental health and
And that's the good and bad things about the wearables is,
yeah.
it's black and white data, and it's only going off of statistical information. It's not going off of, hey, I had a really stressful week at work. So, no, I needed the extra sleep instead of going out for that extra 15-minute walk. It doesn't consider the whole person.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't consider the situation that you're in at that time. So, you know, and you may not remember what you did like a month ago, and you might think like, why did I did so badly? And you didn't realize like, well, you know, maybe something tragic happened that week, or maybe something stressful, you know,
Right.
happened. So, yeah, I've I kind of I stopped using it to see how that is. I do like my smartwatch because it tells me when someone texts me or something,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
like those fun things, of course. But you know, as far as the fitness goes,
There's a lot of things out there. I if somebody is really committed, like they're like, I have to have the data, I always recommend somebody go and look at what's going to be the best thing for them. There's a website called dcrainmaker.com. This guy has written reviews on everything, the Fitbits, the Garmins, the everything. And so you can find the best version of whatever for you. Like I use a Garmin triathlon watch, but I've not only been able to choose the best one for me, it tracks everything I want to track, but I've been able to turn off the notifications that I don't want to see that get into my head. Like, I don't need to be sitting on my couch at night after a 12-hour day and have it to tell me to get up because I've been sitting too long. No, I've had a really long day. I don't need my watch to tell me to get up and move. So it's things like that we learn how to make something useful and supportive.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely that balance. Like it can be useful, but it can also really hit you mentally, and that's kind of where I'm at. So I know we've been talking for like an hour, but I wanted to give you a chance to say any last things to the audience that you really want them to know and want them, like especially people who are trying to become healthier and more fit and really look at their, their lifestyle, me included, and also how can people find you?
Well, people can find me all over social media at some iteration of Heart and Soul Fitness. Soul is spelled SOLE. You can also find me on my website, heartandsoulfit.com, and Heart and Soul, SOLE, fit.com. And really, I've said it all at some point as we've talked, but keep it simple, start small, and have support. That's really what it all comes down to. And it doesn't have to be hard. I heard it really well phrased this week in a conversation that it can be easy. Like, life can really be easy. And it just kind of clicked for me when I heard it. I'm like, yeah, life really can be easy.
Well, thank you. And thank you for what you do. It's not easy to go out there because you are vulnerable when you seek out help and ask people for help, because it's really showing, like, that part of you that you don't necessarily want to share with other people. So I'm really glad that you're doing this and that you're doing it at such a personal level too. And it's not like, out in public in the park, like
right.
some people. All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. This was a great conversation. I'm glad I got to talk to you on the podcast.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thanks for making it to the end. If you enjoy what you hear and want to stay up to date on the show, please follow me on Facebook and or on Instagram. You can also check out my website at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast.com. All the information will be on there as well as in the show notes. If you want to help support the show, please review and rate the podcast and share it with your friends and family. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.